and welcome to the Flossi podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome for the first time. My name is Claire and I like to make things, mainly knitting, and I'm a knitwear designer, and this podcast is all about me rambling on and showing what I'm up to, what I'm making, what I'm designing, and yeah, we just hang out and we have a little bit of fun. I'm sometimes joined by my fairy partner in crime, Tilly, who's lurking up on the landing right now, so she might make an appearance. We don't know. We'll see her soon, hopefully. If you've been here before, you know what we're all about. Welcome back. It's always nice when you return to hear me witter on. And yeah, I've got a fun little episode for you today where I've got a few things to share. If you watched my last episode, then it's an update on a current WIP, and also you saw the very beginnings of a new design I was working on. Well, I can show you that completed design that's just lurking over here, which I've got a little added surprise. I can't remember if I mentioned that I was going to do another variation on that pattern, on that design last time, but we'll get to it in a minute. Before we get to all the fun stuff, well, this is fun too. What I'm wearing today is, I threw on my Joni cardigan today, which has been getting a lot of wear while the spring has finally sprung and it's been a little bit warmer. Because this is a mohair, it's lambswool and mohair, so I feel like I'm going to have a small window to wear it for spring before the classic Nova Scotian humidity hits. And it's going to be a little bit too warm to wear it, but for right now it's been perfect, and the 3/4 length sleeves have been really helping. This is a pattern that I launched last year, I think it was November of last year, so I'll link that below. Do check it out if you would like to. It's available on my website and on my Ravelry store. But so yeah, just in case you were interested, I'm wearing my Joni cardigan today. I'm feeling very spring-like. But talking about spring knitting, let's start with the WIP that I had on my needles last time, which is my Atomy. This is from issue 9, issue 9 of the Making Stories magazine, which I have right here. This was the spring issue, Bloom, and I decided to cast on Atomy. I mentioned in the last episode I used to work for Making Stories, and they very kindly sent me a copy of the magazine because they're lovely. And I actually helped to select the patterns for this issue, and Atomy was a firm favourite. As soon as I saw the submission come in, I just thought it was so much fun. And I knew I want to knit it. But for my version, this is knit in Durham Natura's Ulyss, which is gorgeous yarn, which we'll get to in a minute because there's something over there using that yarn. But for my version, I decided to use up some stash yarn, which was this Mabel and Ivy from Tangled Yarns that I've had forever. It's very, very similar to the lambswool Super Soft by Gamwell. So I've had this in my stash for ages, and I thought it'd be really nice to use it up paired with a floofy yarn, to which I'm using Drops Brushed Alpaca. And I wanted to hold the cream throughout and create like a much softer colour palette than what was used for the original sample, which is gorgeous, don't get me wrong. But I just thought it'd be really nice to see it in a softer colour. So that's what I did, as you can see. And I've got really far on, so the whole yoke's done. But if you watch the last episode, you'll know, so this is my original swatch that I did to get the stockinette gauge, but also just to see the colour transition between the 5 colours that I picked. I'm really happy with how the pink through to the brown works, But you'll know I picked this beige colour, this really nice, like a warm beigey colour. I picked that for the entire body and the sleeves. And when I swatched, I was a little bit unsure about it. I really liked how it looked next to the brown, but it's, I don't know, as a colour progression, I thought at first it'd be nice, but then I wasn't sure. And in my last podcast, I already spoke about this, and a lot of you in the comments agreed with me, which made me feel a lot better. So we decided to go back to the pink, because that was my other option. I thought, well, you know what, I could just put the pink in instead, which I just started doing, that you can see right there. So, but yeah, I'm still not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure, and I'll tell you why. It's not because I don't like the pink, and I think it looks really nice next to the brown and that pale rust colour. But I think my initial problem, and it was the same with the beige, was and I think someone else pointed this out, said that that's what they were thinking in the comments too, that for this, it almost feels like the yolk's going to be floating, which normally that's what I would go for with a colour work yolk. But this isn't that kind of colour work yolk. This isn't where, I think because there's such a nice progression through the colours, it just feels a bit, I don't know, that suddenly it's coming to an end, and that just feels a bit disjointed for some reason. So I don't know. I'm going to sit with it for a little while and have a look at it, and maybe you can let me know what you think as well. But what I'm thinking is it almost needs to be, because it kind of goes through, it kind of gets, none of the colours are super dark, but it does kind of go through like a progression where the colours are getting a little darker as it goes on. And I kind of feel like the final colour needs to be another progression of that, so more of a progression of the yolk, rather than the yolk being separate and then the rest just being in whatever colour. So what I'm thinking at the moment is, there are two other colours that I could go with the drops, and the one I'm leaning towards is, so this is a pale rust colour. There's just a colourway called Rust, which is just a couple, it's not a huge difference. At least it doesn't look that way online. I think I'm gonna go and check it out in real life and leave the house. She's very unlike me. Oh, there's Tilly. She's finally made an appearance. She might skulk around though. So I think I'm gonna go check out Rust, which is just a couple of shades darker than this. Because I'm thinking maybe that is going to work better, and then it'll just be a continuation of the yolk. Does that make sense? The other colour I could have gone with is actually a colour I've used before, so I should have a look. I've got a sweater in it upstairs, but it's a much darker version of that. I forget what colourway this is. This is Sage. It's a much darker version of that nice tealy colour, but I think that's going to be too dark, and all I worry about is if I get too dark, then combining it with the cream of this, it's going to look too mild. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Which is absolutely fine. As you know, if you've been here a little while, you know I am all about the process when it comes to knitting, and I am loving working on this. So as much as I'm itching just to keep knitting on it, I want to make sure it's right, and also I don't want to get too far if I know it's not what I want, because the brushed alpaca is a bugger when it comes to frogging back, and it's actually a real shame to overly frog it, just because even as careful as you can be, I find it does kind of rip the fibres quite a bit. It compresses them, and you just don't get the same level of floofy when you unravel. So I don't want to waste any yarn either. So yeah, I'm going to sit with this for a little while, but I think I am leaning towards getting the rust colorway and continuing with that. So I'd love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below, and yeah, or do you think the pink's working? I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me hold it up that way. I think the pink works really well as well. I do think it looks nice, but maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know. Let me know if you have any advice, because the colours are definitely, I keep swapping my mind a lot, but it's a lot of fun to work on. So yeah, that was Atomy from issue 9 of Making Stories magazine. I'll put the link below where you can find that. They are sold out of the print copies on their website, but you can get the digital copies for them, and they have a lot of really lovely stockists, so I'll link the stockist page down there too if you want to check them out. So that's my only WIP at the moment. I'm being very monogamous with it, which is kind of unlike me, because I'm having so much fun with it. But it's also because I've been working on a new pattern that I'm excited to share with you. So in my last episode, I told you about it at the time. It was like a single I-cord cast on. That's all it was. It's changed. Well, it doesn't look like it's changed a lot since then. But it actually has. I kind of went through a few different versions of it. And also, I'm not sure if I mentioned, I'm terrible. I record the podcast, and then when I sit down to record the next one, it's like the instant I've done it, I cannot remember what I said. I should probably go back and watch it again, but that would make me probably not want to record again because it'd be weird. But so if I'm repeating myself, I apologise. But I have designed a new beret pattern, and because I love berets, I think they're awesome and they're really fun to wear, but they're not always so practical, and I know it's not everyone's thing. So I also designed a beanie version of the pattern too, to release at the same time, and I love the way both of them turned out. I'll be honest, I started with the beret, and it started off very differently. For one, it started with the I-cord cast on, which I actually really liked it as a cast on, but it was certainly, I don't know, it wasn't the quickest cast on, which is fine. I'm not all about having to be really speedy, but there was something about doing it and then going into the shaping. I don't think it was the cast on. I think it was just, it didn't feel like the knitting experience really flowed, if that makes sense. And like I said, I'm all about the progress. I like my patterns to look nice, of course. But I just want them to be soothing, I guess, and fun to knit, and just, you know, have a natural feeling progression. And I wasn't getting that from how I initially designed it. So I decided to swap it and go top down instead. And as soon as I did that, because I went through a couple of different variations and the pattern changed a bunch of times, that you see on the crown here. And there was just something really off about it. And as soon as I changed, so you cast on 3 stitches right there, work some I-cord, and then go into this whole section's charted and there's written instructions, and you go into working in the round and you do the whole crown section, and then you work some stockinette, do a small decrease section to get the shaping, and then do an I-cord bind off, which I actually prefer a lot more to an I-cord cast on for whatever reason. I didn't hate the cast on either. I think it's just where my head was at with the pattern at the time. But I actually find it really, really satisfying doing this bind off. There's something really fun about it, and seeing your stitching suddenly be a completely different angle to the rest of the knitting, which I know might sound a bit strange, but I love that. It's like suddenly you've created this other whole direction of knitting. So yeah, so that is the beret. And then, like I said, I wanted to have this pattern as a beanie as well. I haven't wound my end. It's blocked, but I still haven't wound my ends in, so I apologise. We're definitely in progress here as I'm getting everything sorted. But yeah, this is the beanie, and I did it in the same way as the beret, in that it's also knit top down, which for me is a completely new experience when it comes to knitting beanies. I don't think I've ever knit a beanie top down before. If I have, I can't remember. And I'm converted, I'm not gonna lie. If you don't like casting on stitches, then it's awesome. Because again, like with the beret, you cast on 3 stitches and then you just start increasing and working the chart or written instructions, and the crown just emerges, which is super fun. So yeah, if you're not a fan of casting on, top down beanies are the way to go, I think. So a little bit more about the pattern. As I said, you cast on stitches, you work I-cord, and then this crown and this crown are both charted with written instructions as well. And this whole pattern's created using twisted stitches and slip stitches, and yeah, I really like it. I wanted to go for something, I mean, it was definitely kind of very nature inspired, this one, but I didn't want it to be too flowery, which I guess it is very flowery looking, but I really like it. I like how organic it feels. I like that it just kind of emerges from the center, and then because I can't resist putting bubbles on things, it just needed some bubbles. I know there's something wrong with me. I design things and then I had designed it without bubbles on, and I got to this point and I was like, I just feel like it needs bubbles because they're just so much fun and they just feel really playful to me, which is definitely something I like in my knitting. So I added bubbles. If you hate bubbles, you can leave them off. I won't be mad. I'm really happy with how it turned out. A lot of that is due to the yarn as well. There goes Tilly again. So for this pattern, I've used Durum Natura's Euless, which is the original yarn for Atomy. So I end up using it in one way or another anyway. This is one of my favourite yarns. It's a French merino woolen spun yarn. I think it's pretty well known by now, but if you've not heard of it and you've never worked with it, do check it out. I'm looking forward to seeing what else what my testers come up with as well, because for my test knits I never specify that you have to use the same yarn that I have. For one, it's nice to see other people using your yarn and to see the outcome they get with the suggested yarn too. But I always really like seeing my patterns knit up in different yarns to what I've used as well, just to see the different outcomes people get. Plus I just think it's fun for knitters. I know when I'm looking at knitting a pattern, I do look at the suggested yarn, but I also like looking at other people's projects to see what they've used, because it's interesting. Like with Atomy, you can see how just by changing the yarn, the fibre content, the colour palette and all that, you can get a very different look. So it's kind of good to know that you need a yarn similar to the suggested yarn to get the look that you want if you like the sample. But it's just also kind of fun to know you can play around with things and try other things out. And I'm a big fan of stash diving. Oh, that's hard to say. I'm a big fan of stash diving. So I always encourage stash diving whenever you can, and I do the same with my testers. So yeah, by the time this launches, you should be able to see some definitely fun projects coming out from them. And talking about the launch, you can expect this pattern to be released on May the 15th. So coming up pretty soon. What I'm doing is so even though they look very similar, they're actually two very, very different patterns, just to get the shaping, the completely different charts and written instructions. And with the shaping, everything was different. So I am releasing these as two separate patterns, just because amalgamating them, for one, doesn't really reflect the amount of work that went into it. And, you know, we are trying to run sustainable businesses in terms of the work you put in and trying to price accordingly. But also it would have made quite a messy pattern. So I am listing them as two separate patterns. But what I'm going to do is, if you want both versions, I'm going to put bundle options in there with a discount. So yeah, that's what you can expect on May the 15th. So a little reminder, if you want to know exactly when this pattern is available to purchase, if you are interested, you can sign up to my newsletter and then you'll get straight to your inbox when it's available. You can also join my coffee member page. There are multiple perks on there at different levels. If you become a Flossi fan, which is the first tier, you always get 20% off all of my patterns as standard. You get a monthly discount to use. So you'd be able to purchase this at 20% off. If you join the second tier, which is called Good Solid Knickers, because they add that bit of extra support, you actually get all of my newly released patterns as a gift. So every time I release a new pattern, you get access to it for no money at all. That's just part of the perks. And there is level 3, which is Tilly's team, which means you have access to my full library of patterns exclusively all the time. So those are the 3 different levels that you can look at there. So if you're interested in that, do check that out. But yeah, other than that, I'm excited to release this with you. I have done a initial little photo shoot so I could get some good photos for my test knitters, but this week I'll be doing some models photos. It's always a thing I put off. I should really try and do them sooner because I get kind of anxious about them, and it takes me a lot of mental energy to set them up and work out what I'm doing to get my mush in the photo. So yeah, I need to put a day aside next week to wash my hair and so it's clean for the photos and get some model photos of these bad boys. But I'm really excited. I was so happy to be back to designing, and it's definitely got my creative juices flowing. And honestly, the more I look at this, the more I'm kind of thinking a yoke sweater would be really nice in it. I was like, don't over-challenge yourself too soon. Don't go straight into doing sweater design. Just ease yourself back into designing, where I had lost my mojo completely. And of course, in true Claire style, I'm like, I need to design a sweater. But yeah, I am thinking that would be a really cute yoke sweater. So that's where my brain's at the moment. I'm slightly obsessing over it. So yeah, if you think that's a good idea and you want to indulge my most recent knitting obsession, let me know in the comments below. So yeah, that is it for today. Not a huge amount to show, but I've actually done quite a bit of progress since the last episode, and yeah, it's fun. Spring's definitely here. All the tulips are starting to emerge, so I'm not quite as doing my usual post-winter crankiness because I'm the person who wants it to stay winter. It's been really nice. It's been nice getting into those nice springy vibes, so I hope you're feeling that too. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for sticking with me, wittering on, and I'll be back again soon. Yeah, I will update you what's happening with my Atomy, and if you don't follow me on Instagram and you don't get my newsletter, I will put up a little blog post here on YouTube to let you know when these patterns are then available. I haven't got a name for them yet, so if you've got any ideas, please do let me know, because I don't know, the name hasn't come to me yet. So if this is sparking any fun names for you, let me know. Let me know below what you would call it, because yeah, I'm stumped at the moment. But yeah, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to stop rambling. It's been lovely sitting with you for a little while again, and I look forward to catching up with you next time and chatting in the comments below. So have a wonderful day and happy knitting. Bye.